Hello Ranger Point Precision friends and family, and a special howdy to all you space cowboys. In today's video we're going to be installing the M-LOK Handguard here for the Henry rifle caliber models. Now this video is going to be less detailed than the pistol caliber model. If you have a pistol caliber, please go back to the website and find the correct pistol caliber install video. There is a little bit more that you have to remove on the pistol caliber than you do the rifle caliber. So if you're here with a 357, a 44, 45 Colt, if you're here with one of those, please jump out of this video, go to the website, get the right one, because you will have further steps. So now you rifle caliber guys, the first thing we're going to do to get started, we're going to open the action. We're going to look, make sure that there is no ammunition in the chamber or magazine tube. We do not have any ammunition on our workbench or in our wingspan. We owe that to ourselves and those around us. Now let's get started. All right, let's see what is in the package. Let's go ahead and remove our hardware baggie and get our handguard out of here. Now this is going to be the M-LOK handguard. It is only available with the loading port cut out. This right here is threaded 1032 for a traditional swivel stud if you want. There is a QD for a sling, so we've got quick detach pockets for your modern slings. We've got M-LOK at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. And just to make sure that this is the correct one for you, this is an H for Henry. That is going to be pistol caliber or rifle caliber. The handguard does not change. So now, let's look at what's in the hardware baggie. Hardware, assorted Allen screws. We have got 2 of the screws that will fit into your factory tenon. You notice we don't have a tenon here. That's because we started using the factory tenon. We've had a lot of guys that reached out and said that they didn't like sanding our tenon to fit. So we listened and we reacted. You have 4 set screws. These set screws are going to go into the side of the handguard and simply touch off on the side of the barrel. Installation of this hardware is going to be done with either purple or blue Loctite. What I like to do if I'm actually doing a permanent installation is I will take and put a dab of purple or blue Loctite on all of the screws and set screws right now. That way it can get a chance to get started setting up while I am getting ready to install. This one right here, I'm not doing purple Loctite because this gun comes apart a lot, but you would do that for yours, for your general use, because hopefully you intend to keep it and use it for quite a while. As for tools, you're going to need a bench block. You're going to need a non-marring hammer. This is an East Wing flooring hammer, but it definitely works because we've got our nice silicone cups there and it's not going to mark up our rifle. Then, this right here. We do not need this big expensive set, but simply what you're going to need is an assortment of flatheads that fit your gun and possibly some Allens if you want to use a kit like this. If you don't have this, it's no big deal. It just makes the job really easy. So just for reference, your X models are going to look like this. You're going to have a couple of other different variations, but what we're getting after are these 2 screws. So you rifle caliber guys have got it really easy in comparison to the pistol caliber guys. There is a set screw here that hides another screw that holds your magazine tube. That outer magazine tube is going to need to be released. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use an appropriate flathead, put that in there. We're just going to go lefty-loosey. Now this little screw can run off and we do not want it to disappear, so we're going to be very careful to keep it. But right there is that screw. We're going to set it down. Then we're going to take a 5/64 Allen key and we're going to go in here and we're going to get that outer magazine screw there and we're just going to loosen it just a little bit so that that outer magazine tube can be released. Now this part is just a little unnerving. We are going to be beating on this firearm. We're going to remove this tenon right here that holds your outer magazine tube. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull this and set this aside. That is your inner magazine tube, and then we're going to drive this out. Now this one being an X model, this plastic fits pretty tight right here. This forearm fits rather tight. Now your end cap models, basically the other Henrys, it doesn't matter. The hardware mounting is the same. You're just going to take your little end cap off and then the handguard comes off easily. This part, we're going to just go ahead and give this a little tap. The cool thing is right here you've got a little place for a sling, and that is also going to be your point of contact for swinging your hammer and bumping that to get just a little gap right here at the receiver. Now that little bit of a gap is going to allow you to get this driven out. So we're going to take our bench block, we're going to set that in there, and we are going to support it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drive the magazine dovetail out right here, this tenon. So we're just going to take that and boom, there it is. Now you're just going to take and pull that off, set it to the side. Then we'll take our magazine tube out, slide it this way, set that aside. Then we've got to remove the rest of our handguard, and all it does is it slides off. There's a big groove right here with the factory tenon, and that tenon lets that slide out. Boom, so now we've got it. Now our factory tenon will move around a little bit. If you are so inclined, you can put some Loctite in there. At this point, we're going to need our barreled receiver with our factory tenon. We're going to lay this on its side. We're going to need our outer magazine tube and our magazine tube tenon here. So we're going to take the one that has the small hole, that goes in the receiver. The large hole here is for your loading gate, that goes toward the muzzle. So we're just going to take and slide this into the receiver here. Give it a little wiggle. We shouldn't have to do any tapping at this point, just some wiggling. And then make sure that this is facing upward. We're going to take our magazine tube tenon here. We're going to slide it onto the end of it. So we're going to get this lined up with this dovetail in our barrel, and we're going to drive it back home. Now the cool thing about this is this factory tenon slides just a little bit and allows you to get that lined up in that groove. And there I have got that lined up in that groove. So we're going to make sure that everything's nice and level before we go driving this thing back home. Of course, we're going to use our bench block and our non-marring hammer, and we're going to very tentatively hit right here. I don't really want to hit way out here because what you'll do is twist the whole thing. I just want to tap this until that starts going into that dovetail just like that. You see that? That fell right into place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our handguard. So now here we have our barreled action with the magazine tube and the factory tenon in place. We're going to introduce our handguard into the mix here. Now this handguard, one thing I want to show you, we get lots of midnight and 9 p.m. emails where the guys say that this doesn't line up, this doesn't line up. Well, you can see clearly it doesn't line up right now. If you will turn it 180 degrees, then it will line up. This is where the QD sockets are and the loading port cutout. Then this flange right here is what slides into the receiver. And we're simply going to do that. So we're going to go ahead and take our handguard, we're going to slide it into the front of the receiver, and then we're going to pull it up over the factory tenon here, and we're going to give it just a little bit of a bump to get it seated back into the receiver there. Boom, that pushed it right in. Now what we're going to look at is lining up this hole and the factory tenon. At this point, we're going to need the two panhead screws that thread into the tenon there. We're going to place these in this bigger, lower hole. Now I'm just going to take an appropriate sized Allen tip here. We're going to put that in there. And now we're just going to run this down until it starts to thread. If you feel like anything is binding, stop, because you do not want to cross thread this. You do not want any other issues. Now simply enough, I'm not going full tight on that right now. I am just going to roll this over, and we're going to do this to the other side. Again, the panhead screw goes into the larger hole. So we're going to take our appropriate screw tip, I'm going to slide this in here, and like I said, if anything gets in a bind, we are not going to force this. We don't want to cross thread it. I am simply just using just as light of pressure as I can to get that in there. Now it's time for our 4 set screws. These 4 set screws are very simple. All they do is they go into the side of the handguard. We've got one here that comes in on an angle, and another that comes in and just touches off on the side of the barrel here. So these are really simple to do, but you want to be really careful not to cross thread these. I'm going to use the provided Allen key and go ahead and start these. And as stated earlier, you would have either blue or purple Loctite. The thread spec on this is simply going to be hand tight. We don't want to do anything but touch off on the side of the barrel, and what that'll do is that keeps the handguard from moving back and forth. So now I'm going to stop this one about halfway hanging out, because what we're going to do is we're going to center the handguard here shortly. So I'm going to take another one and we're going to go into the rear here. This rear is on an angle, remember, and this angle is angled downward, and all that does is simply, like I said, touch off on the side of the barrel and keeps this receiver part, this flange, locked into the receiver and keeps it from moving around. So that's not fully tight yet. Let's go ahead and roll this over onto the other side. Let's take our Allen key. Again, this is going in on an angle, as you can see from the video here. We're not going to over torque. We're not going to force this, because our installation is going to pivot upon our fasteners having a good bite. You want a good quality installation so that you can enjoy this for years to come. Again, we're going to take our Allen key, we're going to put this into this upper hole, and we're going to pay close attention that we do not force or cross thread anything. Alright guys, now that we have got our handguard on and we need to cinch our magazine screw down, we're going to take our 5/64, we're going to go in there and we're going to snug that up so that it touches off on the side of the magazine tube. Then we're going to take our little plug screw here that goes back into the bottom of the trigger guard plate. We're going to set him in there. We're going to take our flathead screwdriver and we're going to go ahead and drive that home. And boom. So what I want you to look at is right here. You can see how this end is really close to the barrel, this being the muzzle end. And see how this one's kind of further away from the barrel. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to bring this back and we're going to center this up as well as we can. We want equal looking gaps here. Now what we're going to wind up doing, these set screws right here above the tenon, these are just going to touch off on the side of the barrel and keep everything snugged up. There really is no torque spec on this. It's just simply touching the side of the barrel to keep this movement from being there. So we have that one ran in. We're going to run this one in and just touch off. And you can see, as I'm running them in, they're just simply just going to clamp down and keep everything perfectly parallel. So now at this point we need to tighten the tenon screw and our rear tensioning screw. That rear tensioning screw is simply touching off on the bottom of the barrel. There is really no torque spec other than just hand tight. Then we're going to go in here and hit our tenon screw. We're just going to go hand tight on that torque there. Just basically hand tight and let your Loctite do its job. Now we have to do this on the opposite side as well. So we're just going to simply take our set screw. Remember, it's on an angle. Just let it touch off on the bottom of the barrel. No incredible amount of torque. Now let's go in here and hit our tenon screw, and boom, that is finished.